What is going on, everyone? I'm coming to y'all with yet another deck tech. This one is on Temmet, the Vizier of Naktamun. Temmet is a deck I actually put together because a friend of mine bet that I could not put it together and ever have it win a game, and I accepted the challenge. You know, I was looking for a lower power level deck to play with some of my friends who are new to the game or haven't tuned their decks up just yet, or maybe we're just playing with pre-con decks, and I wanted something that would kind of be on their level. And I was actually pleasantly surprised how well Temmet does as a commander. He's nothing phenomenal, he's not competitive, but damn it, he sure is a lot of fun. So this deck is built around tokens, but specifically I'm trying to take advantage, for flavor reasons and for fun reasons, of the Embalm and Eternalize abilities. So there's a healthy package of those in the deck, as well as several cloning effects to clone really big, powerful creatures, give them unblockable and punch in, which kind of allows me to use my cards to my opponent's cards to my advantage. And it's an interesting deck. There's definitely not a lot out there like it, especially in Azorius, and I really did like the way it turned out. So let's go ahead and start. Temmet is a 2/2 for blue and a white legendary creature human cleric. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature token you control gets 1/1 and unblockable to end a turn. And he has Embalm for 3, a white, and a blue. So what we'll do is we'll cast Temmet and use his ability as many combats as possible. But when Temmet dies, we'll always send him to the graveyard. That way we can embalm him, get his token form, and put the original back in the command zone. Then when the token dies, we recast it from the command zone. Whenever it dies again, it goes to the graveyard, we embalm it, send it back to the command zone, effectively allowing us to, in the mid to late game, cheat that command attacks as much as possible, which is really nice. Alright, the part no one cares about, the lands. Let's go ahead and breeze through these. Command Tower, Hollow Fountain, Prairie Stream, Adarkar Wastes that's on black Sharpie bordered. I did not spend a lot of money on this mana base as it's my second Azorius deck. Glacial Fortress, Temple of Enlightenment, Port Town, Nimbus Maze, Azorius Chancery, Azorius Guildgate, and Temple of the False God, as well as Myriad Landscape, Terramorphic Expanse, and Evolving Wilds. For the basics, I didn't even bother counting how many of each we have. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 islands. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plains. Alright, so that's the lands. Also, the part no one cares about, Mana Rocks. Soul Ring, pretty obvious. Felwar Stone, Azorius Signets, Talisman of Progress, Cold Steel Heart, Sword of the Animus, which is actually sweet because it actually puts a basic into play every time the equipped creature attacks, and it is an equipment, which is kind of nice. Thran Dynamo, and Solemn Simulacrum, which isn't really a mana rock, but he's basically a mana rock. He's 4 mana ETB, get a land, when he dies, draw a card. This deck is actually really lacking on card draw. I realized that after organizing everything to do this deck tech, as the only sources of draw in this entire deck are that Solemn Simulacrum, Brainstorm, and Skull Clamp. There is a Thopter Spy Network in here that also draws, but it's not very much. So I might put a better draw package in this deck after this video. Lightning Greaves is actually, kind of a non-bow in this deck. I actually need to replace this with Swiftfoot Boots. This is one of the instances where Swiftfoot Boots is better because I want to target my own creature with Temmet's ability. So, note to yourself, this should be Swiftfoot Boots. Alright, so we're about to start on the living weapon side of things, starting off with Grip of Phyrexian. Grip of Phyrexian is really great against anyone playing a Voltron deck. We can kind of just steal their best thing, their best equipment. But a lot of people don't seem to realize that it can also be used on your own. You can technically choose to cast it and target your own living weapon or your own equipment and create a germ token for it. So, worst case scenario, it's 3 mana and make a germ token for your current equipment on the battlefield. Not horrible, by any means, but when you can steal somebody's Sword of Protection and value, it's a lot of fun. And one day I really hope to steal the Sword of Dungeons & Dragons with this, and beat face with dragons. Could be fun. Bone Horde Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures in all graveyards. Really solid card. Really helps us beat in for as much damage as humanly possible. Scytheclaw is another living weapon. It only gives the equipped creature 1/1, but when they deal combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up, which is insane. And Batterskull, which is one of the few cards I went out and splurged on for this deck, because you've got to have a Batterskull. It's just the best living weapon in the game, and very solid in a Temmet deck. Into a little bit of the recursion / embalm and eternalize side of things. This is, to my knowledge, the only way I had to get back instants and sorceries. I need to work in some more instant and sorcery recursion as well. But Flood of Recollection gets back an instant or sorcery, then exiles itself. Solid enough. Embalmer's Tools. I don't know why I don't see this in more Temmet decks. Every Temmet deck that I've seen plays a fair amount of Embalm and Eternalize creatures, and of course your commander itself has Embalm, which will make your Embalm cost 1 less to activate, so Temmet only costs 4 to Embalm now. The second part about tapping an untapped zombie for someone to mill a card isn't all that relevant, but more than once my opponent has Vampiric Tutored or Worldly Tutored or Enlightened Tutored, and I just tap my Embalm Temmet to make them mill the top card of their library they just tutored for. So it does have some actual usage, but it's mainly here for that first ability. Alright, Trueheart Duelist can block an additional creature each combat and has Embalm for 2 and a white. Not the best creature in the world, but certainly playable, and it's been helpful more than once. Anointer Priest is a Soul Sister that only works for tokens we control, and Embalms for 3 and a white. Adorned Pouncer is my favorite thing to eternalize in this deck, because getting a 4/4 double strike token that we give 1/1 and unblockable to is awesome. I will happily hit somebody for 10 damage in one swing. Soft kitty, warm kitty. Champion of Wits. It's also a card draw, so I guess there's a little bit more card draw than I thought, but I still need more. ETB, draw cards equal to its power, then discard 2 cards. So at first it's draw 2, discard 2 for 3, not bad. Eternalize is expensive for 5 and 2 blue, but late game we'll usually eternalize it, get the better cards out of those 4 we draw, discard 2 cards we don't want, and get some advantage on our opponent. Aven Wind Guide, our creature tokens have Flying and Vigilance, and it has Embalm for 4, a white and a blue. Vizier of Many Faces is a clone with Embalm for 3 and 2 blue. Actually, one of my favorite Embalm creatures in this deck. Vizier of the Anointed is not an Embalm or Eternalized creature, but when it enters the battlefield, it does tutor 1 into our graveyard, so it entombs an Embalm or Eternalized creature, which is solid. And when we activate an Internalize or Embalm ability, we draw a card. So when we Embalm or Eternalize anything, including our General, we're drawing a card off it. So okay, there's a little bit more card draw than I realized. Still, need to add more. Glyph Keeper. When it becomes a target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn, counter that spell or ability. Bit of a non-bow with our Temmet, to be perfectly honest with you, because it doesn't say spell or ability an opponent controls. So, unless we have a way to target it with something else, we can't target it with Temmet in its embalmed form. But it's also harder for our opponents to touch it. Angel of Sanctions is an Oblivion Ring on an Angel that embalms for 5 and a white. By the way, I forgot to mention, this guy embalms for 5 and 2 blue. And Back from the Brink effectively gives every creature in our yard Embalm equal to its mana cost. Pretty solid. It doesn't turn it into a zombie or turn it white, but we really don't care about that side of things at all. We also have some clones in here. So Dance of Many is just a emergency, make it a copy of awesome creature on the board and give it an upkeep cost of 2 blue. Cackling Counterpart is 1 and 2 blue, an instant that clones a creature we control. So a little bit more limiting, but it also flashes back for 5 and 2 blue, so it has double usage. Phyrexian Metamorph. I had a spare copy, so I put it in here. Honestly, it just clones an artifact or a creature. I'll probably swap this out for Clever Impersonator in the future, but it's still pretty solid. Just clone a Mana Roc or something. Or clone a really awesome creature. Doesn't really matter. Tempt with Reflections is so much fun. I love playing Tempting Offer cards, and this is kind of where I get to play this one. So, yeah. Let's see how many tokens of our best creature we can get. On that same note, Rite of Replication is just better. 9 mana effectively to make 5 copies of any creature on the board. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Followed Footsteps. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create a token of the enchanted creature. So, 3 and a blue, just enchant anything on the board and start getting them. Stolen Identity is wonderful in this deck because we make a token copy of an artifact or a creature, usually a creature. We then cipher Stolen Identity onto that creature token, give it unblockable with Temmet, and keep making more. Value engine is real. Mirror-Sigil Sergeant is another really fun card to play with because every upkeep, if we have a blue permanent, we get a token copy of it, and those token copies will actually have the same ability. So we just start snowballing into getting huge amounts of Mirror-Sigil Sergeants, giving one unblockable at a time and just punching in for damage. Anointed Procession, a flavor win and a powerful card that you should absolutely be playing in your Temmet decks no matter what. It's a white Parallel Lives. Phyrexian Processor. Why? Because I wanted to play this card and there's no better spot for it than Temmet. Enter the battlefield? Yeah, sure, I'll pay 10, 15 life, and if you remove it, fine. You know, I get it, I expect it, but if I can at least use it one time, I'm usually pretty happy. Thopter Spy Network. Every upkeep, if we control an artifact, we get a 1/1 colorless Thopter token. We have a fair amount of mana rock, so that's pretty easy to hit the threshold for. And whenever one or more artifact creatures we control damage a player, we draw a card. So, small card draw engine, give the token unblockable if we need to draw, and get in that way. Faerie Artisans is one of my favorite cards of all time. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, we get a token copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. And then we exile all other tokens made with it. So, my favorite time to play this is against an Enter the Battlefield deck. Whenever my friend Hagen breaks out Safi, I laugh maniacally because that deck has practically nothing but ETB effects, and he hates seeing Faerie Artisans on my board. One of my favorite cards. As is Reef Worm, because you know what? There's always a bigger fish. Scion of Vitu-Ghazi, because this deck is relatively budget, at least compared to the vast majority of my other decks. And anyone who played during the Return to Ravnica block knows that this card was cancerous and was in almost every single pack in the freaking set. So I had a couple copies. Wingmate Roc has raid. And whenever it enters the battlefield, if you attack with a creature that turn, or this turn, you get a 3/4 white bird token. So, Wingmate Roc, if into ETBs, if we hit somebody, or we even attack with somebody, we create a Wingman Roc, and whenever it attacks, we gain 1 life for each attacking creature, which is solid. Stitcher Geralf, another favorite of mine that I just wanted to play somewhere, and I figured, screw it, why not Temmet? And you know what? It is a lot of fun. Making huge blue zombie tokens and giving them unblockable is just, it's impossible to resist. On a similar note, we have Desolation Twin, because you know what? I'll take a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi token that I can give 1/1 and unblockable to. Intangible Virtue will give our creature token to 1/1 and Vigilance, which is nice. Silverblade Paladin Soul Bonds to a creature, giving it and the Soulbound creature double strike. Duelist Heritage gives any attacking creature double strike during combat, but it's also really fun because it doesn't specify whenever one or more creatures we control attacks, and it doesn't specify we have to give our own creature double strike. So it also makes for an interesting political tool where our opponents are trying to kill each other and we're like, hey, you know, if you attack him with that creature, I will happily give it double strike. And usually, like, the person we're trying to make a deal with has a flying creature, and the person they want to hit doesn't, and it can either really damage the opponent or even kill the opponent, so we can make some fun deals that way. And then the defending player might try to make an offer, hey, if you don't give that creature double strike, I'll do this for you. It can make for some really fun gameplay. Sublime Archangel is probably one of the most powerful cards in this entire deck. Exalted. Other creatures you control have Exalted. So every creature on our board has Exalted. We are a token deck, although we're not a make a ton of token type deck. Sublime Archangel will usually give between 5 and 8 instances of Exalted to a creature we control. And we usually only ever attack with one creature anyway, so we give that to a token. We then give that token 1/1 and unblockable. We swing with that token, and we mess up somebody's day. I really need to put a grafted exoskeleton in here. It could be fun. Keeper of Keys, strictly because I wanted to have the Monarch in this deck. And you know what? If we're having fun giving one creature unblockable, why not try giving everything unblockable? Mirror Weave is specifically fun with Sublime Archangel, and it's the entire reason it's here. Every creature on the board will become a copy of Sublime Archangel. Because, you know what? Why not? So we have 7 creatures on the board. Every one of them is now a Sublime Archangel. Yeah. Why not? Into the Counterspell suite, it's pretty small. There's Counterspell. There's Render Silent, because it can really shit on a player. And there's Desertion, because I want your thing. For spot removal or single target removal, we have Rapid Hybridization, Swords to Plowshares, Darksteel Mutation, because it's better than removal, Oblation, which can also act as an emergency source of draw for us if we need it, and Fractured Identity, which is my favorite of them. Yeah, it's 5 mana, yeah, it's a sorcery, but it hits any non-land permanent, and everyone besides that permanent's controller gets a copy of it. So, you know what? Yeah, sure. I'll exile your Blightsteel Colossus, make a Blightsteel Colossus token, give it unblockable, and punch you in the face. Sounds like fun. And for board wipes, we have Cyclonic Rift, as every blue deck should. Supreme Verdict, as every Azorius deck should. Ixidron, because it is hilarious in this deck, especially if our Temmet isn't bombed, because then it won't be flipped over. I cannot tell you how many times someone has gotten pissed off at me for playing this card. Crush of Tentacles, because it leaves us behind an 8-8 octopus. Phyrexian Rebirth, because it leaves us behind a gigantic horror. And Descend Upon the Sinful, because it leaves us behind a 4/4 angel. So yeah, that is my Temmet Vizier of Naktamun EDH deck. It's honestly a lot of fun to play. It's a lot of fun to pilot. It is not the most powerful deck in the format, obviously. Not every deck we build has to be super over the top and competitive. But I think it's a really fun general. It's great if you're looking for a lower power level general, maybe a lower to mid power level general, to play in your playgroup against newer players or against less experienced players, or even players that just prefer playing their weaker decks, or even janky decks, or maybe just precons. Temmet is a really interesting way to go, and something different in Azorius, a breath of fresh air. Something completely different from all the stacks type generals, and prison generals, and pillow fort generals, and blinking generals, and everything else that we see so abundantly in Azorius. Temmet is, in my opinion, one of the 2 most unique and interesting Azorius generals, the other one being Daxos. So if you're looking for a way to play blue-white, but you're not a control player, Temmet just might be for you. So, I hope you all enjoyed the deck tech, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, peace, and take care.